I didn't know whose wedding I was attending until I walked through the cathedral doors. My father had been vague on the phone, unusual for a man who lived by schedules and contracts. "Wear something elegant," he'd said. "Be there by 6. Don't ask questions." I should have known then that something was wrong. The cathedral was breathtaking, all soaring ceilings and stained glass that caught the evening light. White roses climbed every column, their scent thick enough to choke on. I smoothed my pale blue dress, the most formal thing I owned, and searched the crowd for my father's silver hair. Instead, I found eyes. Dark eyes, cold eyes. Eyes that tracked me from the moment I stepped into the aisle, belonging to a man who stood near the altar in a black suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that news cameras loved. Sharp jawline, dark hair swept back, the shadow of stubble that spoke of deliberate carelessness. He didn't smile. He just watched. My skin prickled. "Elena." I turned to find my father suddenly beside me, his hand gripping my elbow too tightly. His face was gray, sheened with sweat despite the cool air. "Papa? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." But his voice shook. "Come with me, quickly." He pulled me toward a side corridor, away from the gathering guests. My heels clicked against marble. "Papa, you're scaring me. Whose wedding is this?" He stopped abruptly, turned to face me. For the first time in my 24 years, I saw fear in my father's eyes. "Yours." The word hit me like cold water. "What?" "I'm sorry." His hands trembled as they gripped my shoulders. "I'm so sorry, Mia Figlia. I had no choice. The debts, the family, they were going to kill us both." "What are you talking about?" My voice rose. "What debts?" "The Corsini family. I borrowed money 5 years ago to save the business. I thought I could pay it back, but..." He broke off, his face crumpling. "They wanted blood or a bond. This is the bond." "You sold me?" The words came out hollow, disbelieving. "I saved us." But he couldn't meet my eyes. Dante Corsini demanded a wife from our family. I gave him you. The ceremony is in 10 minutes. The corridor tilted. I grabbed the wall for support. "No. Elena. No." Louder now. "I'm not marrying a stranger because you gambled with money you didn't have. You don't understand what these people are capable of. Then you marry him." I shoved past my father and ran. Not toward the exit, I wasn't thinking clearly enough for that, but deeper into the cathedral, through a door that led to a narrow stairwell. My heels echoed. My breath came in gasps. I made it 3 floors up before I heard footsteps behind me. Not my father's shuffling gait. These were measured, confident, the footsteps of someone who knew I had nowhere to go. I reached a heavy wooden door and threw it open, stumbling onto a balcony that overlooked the cathedral floor. The wedding setup spread below like a stage. Guests filled the pews. A priest stood ready. The footsteps stopped behind me. "Running won't change anything." His voice was deep, accented with something Mediterranean that softened the edges of his English. I didn't turn around. "I won't marry you." "Yes, you will. You can't force me to say the words." "I can." He moved closer. I felt the heat of him at my back. "Your father owes me 3 million euros. The contract I hold allows me to claim assets equal to the debt if payment isn't made. You are the asset he offered." "People aren't assets. In my world, everything is an asset." I finally turned to face him. Up close, Dante Corsini was even more imposing. He stood at least 6 inches taller than me, his presence filling the small balcony like smoke. The fading sunlight cut across his face, highlighting a thin scar that ran from his temple to his cheekbone. "Why?" I managed. "Why would you want a wife who doesn't want you?" "Because I don't want a wife." His gaze moved over me, clinical, assessing. "I want revenge." "On who?" "Your family." He said it so simply. 15 years ago, your uncle testified against my father in a trial that sent him to prison. He died there. Your uncle walked free, changed his name, started over. But I found him 6 months ago. I don't have an uncle. Marco Santoro. He became Marco Bellini when he entered witness protection. Your father's brother. The name meant nothing to me. I've never met anyone named Marco. No, your father kept you separate, clean. Dante's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. But blood is blood. and the Corsini family believes in debts paid in blood. So kill me. I lifted my chin, trying to steady my voice. If that's what this is about, killing you would be quick. He stepped closer, and I pressed back against the stone railing. Marriage is forever. You'll wear my name, live in my house, smile for photographs. And every day your father will wake up knowing he sold his daughter to the son of the man his brother destroyed. That's sick. That's justice. That's cruelty. His expression didn't change. You're learning. For a long moment, we stood there, predator and prey, buyer and bought. The cathedral bells began to chime below. 6 o'clock. So I have no choice, I whispered. You have one choice. Dante reached out, his fingers catching a strand of my dark hair that had come loose. He tucked it behind my ear with surprising gentleness. You can walk down that aisle with dignity, or I can drag you. Either way, you'll be my wife in 30 minutes. My eyes burned, but I wouldn't let him see me cry. I'll walk. Good. He released me, stepping back. The dress is waiting in the bride's room. My sister will help you. You have a sister? I have a family. His gaze hardened. And we protect what's ours, even when what's ours is unwilling. He turned and walked away, his footsteps fading down the stairwell. I stood alone on the balcony as the sun set, watching guests file into their seats below. Somewhere in that crowd was my father, the man who'd raised me alone after my mother died, who'd taught me to ride a bike and checked my homework and promised I'd never want for anything. The man who'd just traded me like livestock. I pressed my hands to my face and let myself break, just for a moment, just long enough to remember what it felt like to be Elena Bellini, art teacher, daughter, free woman, because in 30 minutes, that person would cease to exist, and I would become Mrs. Dante Corsini, property of a man who looked at me and saw only revenge. The wedding dress was white silk and Italian lace, fitted to my exact measurements, though I'd never been measured for it. When I asked Dante's sister, Gianna, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s, how they'd known my size, she just smiled. Dante is thorough. The words made my skin crawl. Gianna zipped me up with efficient movements, her expression unreadable. You'll be fine. Just remember to smile during the photographs. I'm being sold into marriage and you want me to smile? I'm advising you to survive. She met my eyes in the mirror. My brother is not a gentleman, but he's not needlessly cruel. Play your role, and you won't be harmed. What role is that? The devoted wife. Gianna adjusted my veil, at least in public. She led me back downstairs, where my father waited at the cathedral entrance. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hands shaking as he offered me his arm. I didn't take it. Elena, please. Don't. My voice was flat. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just walk me down that aisle so we can both survive this. Something died in his face, but he nodded. The cathedral doors opened. Music swelled, something classical and beautiful that mocked the ugliness of what was happening. Every head turned. I saw faces I didn't recognize. Expensive suits and glittering jewelry. The kind of people who attended weddings as business transactions. And at the end of the aisle stood Dante. He watched me approach with the same cold assessment as before, his expression giving nothing away. The priest beside him looked nervous, his fingers worrying at his prayer book. My father walked stiffly beside me, and I realized with sick clarity that he was terrified. Not of losing me, of them, of the men in dark suits who lined the pews like sentries. When we reached the altar, my father released my arm without a word, without looking at me. He simply retreated to his seat, shoulders hunched. Coward. Dante extended his hand. I stared at it, broad palm, long fingers, a signet ring that caught the light. The hand of a man who'd probably killed people, who definitely destroyed them. Elena. His voice was low, meant only for me. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and firm. He drew me closer, positioning me beside him as the priest began to speak. The words washed over me in Italian, a language I barely understood, which was probably intentional. I caught fragments. Matrimonio, onore, obbedienza, obedience. My stomach turned. When the priest addressed me directly, switching to English, I heard myself respond. I do. The words tasted like ash. Dante's responses were clear, unwavering. No hesitation, No doubt. Then came the rings. He slid a diamond band onto my finger, heavy, cold, expensive. When it was my turn, my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the gold band meant for him. His fingers steadied mine, guiding the ring into place. I pronounce you husband and wife. The words echoed through the cathedral. You may kiss the bride. Dante's eyes met mine. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw something flicker there, hesitation, maybe, or recognition of how wrong this was. But then his expression shuddered. He cupped my face with one hand, his touch surprisingly gentle, and lowered his mouth to mine. The kiss was brief, chaste, almost. His lips barely brushed mine before he pulled away. But I felt the promise in it, the possession, the claim. Applause erupted around us. I stood there, numb, as Dante tucked my hand into the crook of his arm and led me back down the aisle. Cameras flashed. People smiled. Someone threw rose petals that caught in my veil. It was perfect. It was a nightmare. The reception was held in a villa on the outskirts of Rome, all marble columns and manicured gardens, with a terrace that overlooked the city lights. Dante kept me at his side through every greeting, every toast, his hand resting possessively on my lower back. "Smile," he murmured during one particularly long photo session. "No, you're making this difficult." "Good." His fingers pressed more firmly into my spine, not quite painful, but a warning. "You agreed to play the role. I agreed to marry you. I didn't agree to pretend I'm happy about it." For a moment, I thought he might lose his temper, but instead, he leaned closer, his mouth near my ear. "Every guest here knows exactly what this marriage is. They know your father's debts. They know my family's history. The only person you're fooling with your misery is yourself. Then why do you care if I smile? Because defiance is boring." He straightened, his expression smoothing back into indifference. The words stung more than they should have. The evening dragged on. I danced when required, spoke when spoken to, and drank enough champagne to blur the edges of reality. Dante remained close, always watching, always in control. It wasn't until nearly midnight that he finally led me away from the crowd, through the villa's ornate hallways to a suite on the 3rd floor. The door closed behind us with a soft click. I stood in the center of the room, still in my wedding dress, and waited for whatever came next. Dante shrugged off his jacket, loosening his tie. "There's a bedroom through that door. It's yours." I blinked. "What?" "Your room." He poured himself a drink from the bar cart, his movements relaxed. "I have no intention of sharing a bed with you. But, did you think I planned to consummate this?" He laughed, sharp and humorless. "I told you, Elena, I don't want a wife. I want revenge. And forcing myself on you would be a mercy compared to what I have planned. Which is what? You'll see." He raised his glass in a mock toast. "Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Corsini." Then he walked into the adjoining room and closed the door. I stood alone in the elegant suite, still wearing a wedding dress I hadn't chosen, bearing a name I didn't want. And for the first time since the cathedral, I let myself cry. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the disorienting realization that yesterday had been real. I was married, to a stranger, for revenge. The bedroom was beautiful in the cruel way, expensive things often, our silk sheets, antique furniture, a view of manicured gardens that stretched toward the Roman hills, a gilded cage. Someone had hung my wedding dress in the closet and unpacked clothes I didn't recognize. Designer labels, perfect sizes, a wardrobe for a woman who didn't exist. I pulled on jeans and a sweater, my own clothes, wrinkled from my bag, and opened the bedroom door. The suite beyond was empty. No sign of Dante. Just a breakfast cart near the window with coffee, pastries, and a single white rose in a crystal vase. The rose made me irrationally angry. I ate mechanically, then explored. The suite had 3 rooms, my bedroom, a shared sitting area, and the locked door to what I assumed was Dante's space. I tried the handle anyway. Locked. The main door to the hallway, however, opened easily. I stepped out, half expecting guards or locks, but found only an empty corridor lined with artwork that probably cost more than my childhood home. I walked aimlessly, cataloging exits and windows with the vague notion that escape might still be possible. "You're awake." I spun to find Gianna approaching, dressed impeccably in tailored trousers and a silk blouse. She carried herself with the easy confidence of someone who'd never doubted her place in the world. "Where's Dante?" "Business." She fell into step beside me. "He'll be back tonight. He asked me to show you the house." "I don't need a tour." "Nevertheless." Gianna's smile was polite but firm. "This is your home now. You should know it." The villa was massive, dozens of rooms spread across 4 floors, each more opulent than the last. Gianna narrated with the detachment of a museum guide. This was the formal dining room, this the library, this the gallery where Dante kept his collection of Renaissance art. "He likes beautiful things," she said as we passed a Caravaggio that should have been in a museum. "He likes owning things," I corrected. Gianna's expression flickered. "Perhaps." We ended the tour in a solarium filled with light and climbing jasmine. Gianna poured tea with practiced grace. "You're angry," she observed. "I'm a prisoner. You're protected. Is there a difference in our world?" Gianna sipped her tea. "Yes. Protection means you're valued. Imprisonment means you're disposable. Dante could have simply killed your father and been done with it. Instead, he married you because he wanted to punish him. Perhaps," she set down her cup, "or perhaps because he's not as cruel as he pretends to be." I laughed bitterly. "He told me to my face that he's using me for revenge, and yet you're here, unharmed, in a beautiful home with every material comfort." Gianna met my eyes. "My brother is many things, Elena, but he's not a liar. If he wanted to hurt you, you'd know it." "This doesn't hurt?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I was married at 19 to a man 3 times my age. A business arrangement, like yours. He was not kind. I learned to survive by understanding the difference between cruelty and necessity. Dante operates in necessity." "What happened to your husband?" "He died." Gianna's smile was cold. 5 years ago, very suddenly. The implication hung between us. "I'm sorry," I said, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. "Don't be. His death freed me." She stood, smoothing her trousers. "I tell you this so you understand. This life is not gentle, but it can be survived. And sometimes, survival leads to something better." After she left, I remained in the solarium, watching shadows move across the garden. Somewhere beyond these walls was my old life, my apartment, my students, my freedom. All of it might as well have been on another planet. I didn't hear Dante return. I only realized he was there when I walked back into the suite that evening and found him standing by the window, still in his suit, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "How was your day?" he asked without turning. "Is that a serious question?" "No." He took a drink. "Gianna said you toured the house. Your prison is very beautiful." "It's not a prison, Elena. You're free to go anywhere on the grounds, the city if you like, with a driver, but not alone." "No." He finally looked at me. "Not alone. Because you don't trust me. Because you're valuable." His gaze was steady, unreadable. "And valuable things require protection. I'm not a thing." "No." He set down his glass. "You're my wife." Which, in some ways, is worse. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. Dante crossed to the bar, poured another drink. "Your father called today. He wanted to know if you were settling in." My chest tightened. "What did you tell him?" "That you're exactly where you belong." He offered me a glass, which I didn't take. He seemed relieved. Of course he did. He sold me to save himself. "Yes." Dante studied me over the rim of his glass. "Does it help to hate him? Does it help you to hate me?" "I don't hate you." He said it simply, like stating a fact. "You're a means to an end. Hating you would require caring about you." The words landed like blows. "Then why the rose?" I gestured toward my room. "Why the pretense of civility?" "Because we're going to live together for the foreseeable future. I see no reason to make it unbearable." "It's already unbearable." "Then you have a limited imagination." His expression hardened. "I could make this much worse, Elena. Remember that." He walked past me into his room, leaving me standing alone in the gathering dark. That night, I lay awake in my beautiful bedroom and thought about Gianna's words. Survival leads to something better. But what if I didn't want to survive? What if I wanted to fight? The thought was dangerous, but it was the first thing that had felt like mine since the cathedral. 3 days passed like a slow bleed. Dante left early each morning and returned late, always impeccably dressed, always controlled. We orbited each other like distant planets, sharing space but never truly touching. He spoke to me only when necessary, and I responded in kind. It should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like drowning in slow motion. On the 4th day, I woke to shouting. I pulled on a robe and crept to my door, pressing my ear against the wood. Dante's voice carried from the sitting room low, dangerous, speaking rapid Italian to someone I couldn't see. Then, a crash, glass breaking. I opened the door a crack. Dante stood in the center of the room, his back to me, phone pressed to his ear. He'd thrown his whiskey glass against the wall, amber liquid dripped down expensive wallpaper. Non mi importa. His voice was lethal. Trova Marco Santoro. Ora, my uncle's name. No, ucciderlo sarebbe troppo facile. He paused, listening. Voglio che sappia cosa ha fatto. Voglio che veda. I want him to know what he did. I want him to see. He ended the call with a vicious jab and stood there, shoulders tight, radiating fury. I should have retreated, closed the door, stayed invisible. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Did you find him?" Dante spun. For a heartbeat, his expression was raw rage and grief twisted together before the mask slammed back into place. "That's not your concern. It is if I'm the weapon you're using." He stared at me, and I saw him recalculate. Decide something. Get dressed. Something formal. We have an event tonight. What kind of event? The kind where you smile and play the devoted wife. He grabbed his jacket. Be ready at 7. He left without another word. The event was a charity gala at a historic palazzo Rome's elite gathered to donate money they'd never miss, while pretending to care about causes they'd never think about again. I wore a black dress that Gianna had selected, simple and elegant, with diamonds at my throat that probably cost more than a car. Dante appeared in a tuxedo that made him look even more dangerous. All sharp edges and controlled power. In the car, he briefed me. Tonight you'll meet people who matter. Politicians, businessmen, families like mine. They'll ask about our marriage. You'll tell them we're very happy. And if I don't, then you'll learn why people fear me. His tone was conversational. I've been patient, Elena. Don't mistake that for weakness. The palazzo was stunning, frescoed ceilings, marble floors, champagne and crystal flutes. Dante kept his hand at my waist as we moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations on our marriage with practiced ease. I played my role, smiled when required, let him introduce me as my wife, Elena, in a tone that suggested ownership. But I watched how people reacted to him, the subtle fear, the careful deference, how conversations stopped when he approached, how women looked at him with hunger and men looked away too quickly. Dante Corsini wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful in a way that made people nervous. You're learning, he murmured as we moved toward the ballroom. Learning what? How to read a room. His thumb traced a small circle on my hip, absent, perhaps unconscious. You're smarter than I thought. You thought I was stupid? I thought you were sheltered. He glanced down at me. There's a difference. Before I could respond, a man approached, older, silver-haired, with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Dante, congratulations on your marriage. Senator Ricci. Dante's expression was cordial, but I felt him tense. Thank you. And this must be the lovely Elena. Ricci took my hand, his grip lasting a moment too long. Bellini, yes? Any relation to Marco Bellini? The name dropped like a stone. Her father, Dante said smoothly, though they're estranged. Ricci's eyes glittered. Yes, I remember Marco. Difficult business, that trial. So many lives destroyed. Indeed. Dante's hand tightened on my waist, a warning. If you'll excuse us, Senator. He steered me away before Ricci could respond. Don't react, Dante said quietly as we walked. He's baiting you. How does he know about Marco? Everyone knows. That's the point. We reached a quieter corridor. Your uncle's testimony destroyed 3 families. Mine was only one of them. There are people here tonight who would happily see you dead for what he did. My throat went dry. Then why bring me? Because I want them to see that you're mine now. That Marco's blood belongs to me. His gaze held mine. You're a message, Elena. walking proof that the Corsini family takes what's owed. I'm not proof. I'm a person. Tonight, you're whatever I need you to be. Something in me snapped. No. I pulled away from him. I've played along for 4 days. I've worn your clothes and lived in your house and let you parade me around like a trophy. But I am not a message. I am not a weapon. I am a person, and you don't own me. People were starting to glance our way. Elena. My name is Elena Bellini, not Corsini, not yours. My voice shook, and I'm done pretending. I turned and walked away, my heels clicking sharply against marble. I made it to the palazzo's garden before he caught up. His hand closed around my wrist, not rough but immovable. You're making a scene. I don't care. You should. He pulled me deeper into the garden, away from the windows where guests could see. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Stood up for myself? Shown weakness. His face was inches from mine. Every person in that ballroom will know by morning that my wife defied me publicly. Do you know what that makes me look like? Someone who married a person instead of a doll? Someone who can't control his own house. His grip tightened fractionally. In my world, that's blood in the water. Then maybe your world is sick. It's the only world we have. For a moment, we stood there in the darkened garden, breathing hard, locked in a battle of wills. Then Dante released me. Go back to the car. I'll make excuses. No. Elena. I said no. I lifted my chin. If I'm going to be your wife, your message, then I'll do it on my terms. I'll go back in there. I'll smile. I'll play the role. But not because you ordered me to. Because I choose to. Something shifted in his expression, surprise, maybe, or respect. Why? Because Gianna was right. Survival is a choice. I met his eyes. And I'm choosing to survive you. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, the role requires dancing. Can you dance? Yes. Good. He offered his hand. Then let's give them something to talk about. I placed my hand in his. We walked back into the ballroom together, and Dante led me onto the dance floor as a waltz began. His hand settled at my waist, mine on his shoulder, and we moved together with the music. You're full of surprises, he murmured. So are you. How so? You could have dragged me out of here. Punished me. Instead, you're dancing with me. His expression was unreadable. Perhaps I'm choosing to survive you. 2. The waltz ended. He released me with a slight bow, perfectly correct. But as we left the palazzo an hour later, I caught him watching me with something that wasn't quite hatred anymore. Something more dangerous. Curiosity. After the gala, something changed. Dante didn't become kind. That would have been too much of a transformation. But he became present. He stopped leaving before dawn and returning after midnight. Instead, he worked from the villa's study, and sometimes I'd find him in the library or on the terrace, always with papers or a laptop, always working. We began to share dinners. Not elaborate affairs, just meals at the small table in our suite, prepared by staff I rarely saw. At first, we ate in silence. But slowly, carefully, conversation crept in. What did you do? He asked one evening. Before, I taught art, middle school. Did you enjoy it? I considered lying, keeping myself closed. But what was the point? Yes, the kids were terrible at perspective, but they tried. That mattered. You miss it. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Every day. He nodded slowly, cutting his steak with precise movements. You could paint here. The solarium has good light. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's logistics. Bored people are difficult people. Despite myself, I almost smiled. Is that your way of saying I've been difficult? You've been predictably difficult. He met my eyes. I would have been disappointed if you weren't. The admission startled me. Over the following days, art supplies appeared in the solarium, professional quality oils, canvases, brushes still in their packaging. I didn't thank him, but I started painting. At first, I painted violence, dark colors, harsh lines, abstract expressions of rage. But gradually, without meaning to, I began painting the villa, the way light fell through the library windows, the gardens at sunset, the view from our suite. I was painting my cage, making it beautiful. The realization disturbed me. One afternoon, I found Dante standing in the solarium, studying my work. I'd left a canvas on the easel, a half-finished piece showing the cathedral where we'd married, all shadows and broken light. "It's good," he said without turning. "It's therapy." "Same thing, sometimes." He tilted his head. "You made it look haunted." "It is haunted, by me, by the person I was before you destroyed her." He was quiet for a long moment. "Do you believe that? That I destroyed you? Didn't you? I changed your circumstances. You destroyed yourself by refusing to adapt." The words stung because they held truth. I had been fighting so hard to remain Elena Bellini that I hadn't considered who Elena Corsini might be. "Why do you care?" I asked. "I don't." But he said it too quickly. "I simply prefer functional people in my house." "Liar." He turned then, his expression sharp. "Careful." "Or what? You'll do worse than marry me?" I set down my brush. "You keep threatening consequences, but nothing happens. You give me art supplies. You dance with me at galas. You have dinner with me every night." I stepped closer. "If this is revenge, you're terrible at it." Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "You think I'm being merciful?" "I think you're conflicted." "I'm patient." He closed the distance between us, and suddenly the solarium felt very small. "Revenge is a long game, Elena. I don't need to hurt you quickly. I have years to make your father understand what he enabled. Years to make you regret the blood in your veins. And yet," my voice barely wavered, "you haven't." For a heartbeat, we stood there too close, tension crackling between us like static. Then his phone rang. He stepped back, answering in clipped Italian, his expression shuddering. When he ended the call, his jaw was tight. "I need to leave." "Business." "What kind of business?" "The kind you don't ask about." He grabbed his jacket. "Gianna will stay with you. Don't leave the villa." "Dante." "Lock the doors. Both of them. Don't open them for anyone but Gianna." Fear spiked through me. "What's happening?" "Nothing you need to worry about." But his eyes told a different story. "Just stay inside." He left, and the villa suddenly felt enormous and empty. I tried to paint, but my hands shook. Tried to read, but couldn't focus. Finally, I paced the suite, watching darkness fall over the gardens. Around midnight, I heard vehicles approaching, multiple engines, shouting in Italian. I pressed against the window, but couldn't see clearly. Then, gunshots. Short, sharp cracks that echoed through the night. I stumbled back from the window, heart pounding, more shouting, another shot, then silence. I waited, frozen, barely breathing. Footsteps in the hallway. The door handle turned. Locked. "Elena," Gianna's voice tense. "Open the door." I did, and she pushed inside quickly, locking it behind her. Her face was pale but composed. "What's happening?" "Rivals. They've been dealt with." She moved to the window, checking the gardens. "Dante's handling it." "Is he hurt?" "I don't know." She looked at me. "Stay away from the windows. And stay quiet." We waited together in tense silence. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the door opened. Dante stood there, jacket gone, shirt untucked, a bruise forming along his jaw. Blood on his knuckles, I couldn't tell if it was his. He looked at me, something fierce and assessing in his gaze. "You're all right." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. "Good." He turned to Gianna. "Status?" 3 detained, 1 dead. Marcelli family, like we thought. "Interrogate the survivors. I want to know how they found the villa." His voice was cold, controlled, but I saw the rage simmering beneath. "Double the perimeter guards. No one in or out without my direct approval." Gianna nodded and left. Dante closed the door, leaning against it heavily. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked tired. "This was about me," I said quietly. "This was about territory. You were incidental." "Liar." He laughed, sharp and humorless. "You're learning my tells. Did you kill someone tonight? Does it matter?" "Yes." He met my eyes. "No, but I would have. If they'd gotten closer to you, I would have killed all of them. Because I'm valuable. Because you're mine." The word hung between us, weighted with meanings I didn't want to examine. "And I protect what's mine." He pushed off the door, heading toward his room. Dante. He stopped, not turning. Thank you for protecting me. Don't thank me, Elena. Everything I do has a purpose. Even protection. He disappeared into his room, leaving me alone with the echo of gunshots and the disturbing realization that I'd been genuinely frightened for him. Not because I cared, but because somewhere in the past 2 weeks, he'd become familiar. And familiar things, even terrible ones, felt like safety. Security doubled after the attack. Men in dark suits patrolled the gardens, and every entrance gained additional locks. The villa, already a prison, became a fortress. Dante grew quieter, more watchful. He worked from home exclusively now, always within earshot. At night, I sometimes heard him pacing in his room, restless movements that suggested sleeplessness. We were both trapped. One evening, a week after the attack, I found him on the terrace after midnight. He stood at the railing, shirt sleeves rolled up, a cigarette burning between his fingers. I'd never seen him smoke before. Can't sleep? I asked. He glanced at me, unsurprised by my presence. You shouldn't be out here. Neither should you. According to your own security protocols. A ghost of a smile. Fair. I joined him at the railing, keeping a careful distance. The city lights sprawled below, beautiful and distant. Why did you really marry me? I asked. The truth this time. He took a long drag, exhaling smoke into the night. I told you. Revenge. That's the answer you've prepared. I want the real one. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't respond. Then, when my father died in prison, I was 17. My mother had passed 2 years earlier. I had Gianna, but she was just 19, already married off to that bastard. I had nothing except rage, and a name that meant something. He stubbed out the cigarette. I spent 15 years building this. Power, money, respect, everything my father lost. And the entire time, I knew Marco Santoro was out there somewhere, living freely under a new name. Living the life my father should have had. So you found him. 6 months ago, living in Tuscany, comfortable, happy. His jaw tightened. He'd changed everything. His name, his face surgery, probably. But I found him anyway. And I realized killing him would be too easy. He needed to understand what he'd taken. Family, legacy, future. Dante turned to face me fully. So I took his. I'm not his family. I've never even met him. You're his niece. His blood. Close enough. But something in his expression wavered. That was the plan anyway. What changed? You did. He said it reluctantly, like admitting a weakness. You were supposed to be a symbol, a tool. Instead, you're human. Complicated. He moved closer, and I felt that familiar pull, danger and magnetism intertwined. You were supposed to make this simple. Hate me, fear me, break easily. Instead, you paint in my solarium and argue with me at galas and look at me like I'm something more than a monster. Aren't you? No. The word was firm. I've killed people, Elena. Destroyed families. Built an empire on blood and fear. I am exactly what you think I am. Then why protect me? Because you're my wife. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. His hand rose, hesitating near my face before dropping. You should go inside. It's late. But I didn't move. We stood there in the darkness, the space between us charged with everything we weren't saying. The painting, he said finally. The one of the cathedral. Finish it. Why? Because I want to see how you remember that day. His eyes held mine. I want to know if you see it the way I do. How do you see it? As the day everything became impossible, he walked away before I could respond, leaving me alone on the terrace with those words echoing in my mind. The next morning, a package arrived. Gianna brought it to the solarium where I was working, her expression carefully neutral. This came for you. It's been checked. Inside was a small leather journal and a note in angular handwriting. For the things you can't paint, D. I flipped through blank pages, feeling something crack open in my chest. That night at dinner, I asked, why a journal? Because you're an artist. Artists need outlets. He cut his food methodically. And because you have no one to talk to. I have Gianna. Gianna is loyal to me first. You need something that's yours alone. The unexpected kindness unsettled me. Over the following days, I filled pages with words I couldn't say aloud, anger and confusion, and the growing, terrifying realization that Dante Corsini was more than the monster he claimed to be. I wrote about the way he listened when I spoke, how he'd quietly arranged for my favorite foods to appear at dinner, the time I'd caught him looking at my paintings with something like admiration. I wrote about the moments his mask slipped, revealing someone wounded beneath the control. And I wrote about the fear that I was forgetting to hate him. One evening, he asked, "Have you been writing?" "Yes." "Good." He poured wine, his movements relaxed. "You seem calmer." "I'm adjusting." "To captivity or to me?" The question was blunt, surprising. "Both, I think." I met his eyes. "Is that what you wanted?" "I don't know what I want anymore." The admission seemed to cost him. This was supposed to be straightforward. Instead, it's impossible? Yes. We lapsed into silence, but it felt different now. Less hostile, more like two people learning an unfamiliar language. Later, as I prepared for bed, I heard raised voices from his room. A phone call, clearly tense. I pressed closer to the door, catching fragments. "Found Marco, Tuscany safe house, bring him here." My blood went cold. The call ended. Silence. Then Dante's door opened. He stood there, something dark in his expression. "You heard." "Not a question." "You found him," I whispered. "My uncle. 3 hours ago." He leaned against the doorframe, studying me. "He'll be here tomorrow." "What are you going to do?" "That depends." "On what?" "On you." He straightened. "I can make this quick, painless, or I can make him understand exactly what his testimony cost. What it's still costing." "Don't." The word escaped before I could stop it. "Please. Whatever he did, it was 15 years ago. This won't bring your father back." "No, but it will balance the scales." "Will it?" I stepped closer. "Or will it just make you more like the thing that destroyed your family in the first place?" His expression hardened. "You don't understand. I understand that revenge is eating you alive." My voice shook. "I see it, Dante. The way you don't sleep. The way you're always angry. Always controlled, because if you let go for even a second, you'll become something you can't come back from. You think you know me?" "I think I'm starting to." I reached out, my hand hovering near his arm. "And I think you're better than this." "You're wrong." But he didn't move away. "I'm exactly this." We stood frozen in the doorway between our rooms, between our worlds. "If you do this," I said quietly, "if you make me watch you destroy my uncle for something I had nothing to do with, you'll prove that everything you said was true. That I'm just a tool, a message, nothing more." "You are nothing more." "Then why did you give me a journal?" My hand finally made contact, resting lightly on his forearm. "Why do you have dinner with me every night? Why do you protect me instead of just locking me away?" He stared down at my hand like it was a weapon. "Because I'm weak," he said finally, voice rough. "Because you're supposed to be simple, and you're not, and I don't know how to." He broke off, jaw clenched. "How to what?" "Hate you the way I need to." The confession seemed dragged from somewhere deep. "You're not her. Marco's blood, but not his crime. And I look at you and I see someone who didn't ask for this, who didn't deserve this, who's surviving something I did to her." His hand covered mine where it rested on his arm. "But the plan is already in motion, Elena. Marco arrives tomorrow. And I've promised my family, promised my father's memory, that I would see this through. Then choose differently." I turned my hand, our palms touching. "Choose something besides revenge." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do." I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him. "You've been choosing it every day. Every time you're kind to me when you don't have to be. Every time you protect me beyond what's necessary. You're already choosing something different." For a long moment, he stood there, our hands intertwined, something breaking apart behind his eyes. Then he pulled away. "Get some sleep, Elena. Tomorrow is going to be difficult." He closed his door, leaving me standing alone in the space between. But I'd felt it, the fracture in his armor, the hesitation, the possibility of something besides revenge. Marco Santoro arrived at noon in an unmarked car, flanked by 2 of Dante's men. I watched from the library window as they dragged him inside a man in his 60s, graying and terrified, his face bloodied from what I assumed was resistance. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like someone's father. He looked like my father's brother. Dante had disappeared into the villa's lower-level rooms I'd been told never to enter, the places where business was conducted, where questions were asked and answers extracted. Gianna found me still at the window an hour later. "You should eat something." "I can't." "Elena, is he torturing him?" The question came out flat. Gianna's expression remained carefully neutral. "Dante is doing what needs to be done." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you." She touched my shoulder. "This isn't your burden to carry. He made it my burden when he married me." I pulled away and walked toward the stairs that led down. Gianna called after me, but I didn't stop. The lower level was cold, all concrete and steel. I followed the sound of voices to a reinforced door, guards stationed outside. "I need to see him." The guards looked uncertain. "Signora," Dante said, "I'm his wife. Let me through." They exchanged glances, then one opened the door. The room beyond was stark, bare walls, a single table, 2 chairs. Marco sat in one, hands bound, face swollen. Dante stood across from him, sleeves rolled up, expression carved from ice. Both men looked up as I entered. "Elena," Dante's voice held a warning. "You shouldn't be here. Neither should you." Marco's eyes widened. You're Elena? Dio mio, you look like your mother." The words punched through me. "You knew my mother?" "Before she married your father, yes. We were close. The 3 of us." His voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. For all of this. I never meant—" "Don't." Dante's word cut like a blade. "Don't speak to her. Don't look at her. You lost that right 15 years ago. I was trying to save my family. By destroying mine?" Dante moved with lethal grace, gripping the back of Marco's chair. "My father died in a cell because of your testimony. My mother drank herself to death from grief. Gianna was married off to a man who beat her because we needed alliance money. All of that because you chose your own skin over honor. There was no honor in what your father did." Marco's voice rose. "He was trafficking weapons, Dante. Selling to terrorists. People died. People always die." Dante's tone was glacial. "That's the world we live in. But you broke Omerta. You testified in court. You became a rat. I became a man who couldn't live with blood on his hands. So you put it on mine instead." Dante leaned closer. "I was 17 when I took over what was left of our family. 17, and I had to rebuild from ash and shame. Do you know what that required? What I had to become?" Marco's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. Sono così spiacente. If I could go back. But you can't." Dante straightened. "So now you pay. With everything you love. Your freedom, your name, your family." He looked at me then, something tortured in his expression. "With her. I understood then. Truly understood. I wasn't just revenge. I was the payment. The living reminder of what Marco had cost the Corsini family. Dante had taken me not just to hurt my father, but to destroy my uncle with the knowledge that his choices had enslaved his niece. So that's it?" My voice shook. "I'm a lesson. A punishment for something I didn't do? Your collateral damage." Dante's expression was stone. "Like I was. Like Gianna was. Like everyone who loved my father was. That doesn't make it justice. It makes it cruelty. It makes it even." I looked at Marco, this stranger who shared my blood, whose choices had carved the path that led me here. I should have hated him. Instead, I felt only tired sadness. "He was wrong," I said quietly. "What he did was wrong. But this?" I gestured between us. "This doesn't balance anything. It just spreads the damage further." "Spoken like someone who's never lost everything," Dante said. "I've lost everything." The words exploded out of me. "My freedom, my life, my identity. You took it all, Dante. And for what? So you could feel powerful? So you could prove that you're as ruthless as your father was? Don't speak about my father." "Why not? He's the ghost you're trying to appease." I moved closer, reckless with anger and grief. "But he's dead. He's been dead for 15 years. And nothing you do to me or Marco or anyone else will bring him back." The silence that followed was suffocating. Marco spoke first, his voice broken. She's right. Figlio, she's right. This cycle, it has to end somewhere. Don't call me son. Dante's control was fracturing. You don't have that right. I know. Marco met his eyes. But someone has to say it. This isn't justice. It's just more pain. And that girl, your wife, she's innocent. Let her go, Dante. Please, punish me, kill me, but let her go. No, the word was absolute. She's mine now. That doesn't change. Even if she hates you, Marco pressed. Even if this destroys whatever humanity you have left? I don't have humanity left. That's the point. But his eyes, when they met mine, told a different story. I saw the war there between what he'd promised himself and what he was becoming, between revenge and something dangerously close to regret. Dante. I said his name softly, a prayer or a plea. You do have humanity left. I've seen it. Every time you're kind when you don't have to be. Every time you protect me beyond necessity. Every time you look at me like I'm a person, instead of a possession. You're wrong. I'm not. I moved closer, drawn by something I didn't want to name. And I think that terrifies you. Because if you admit I'm right, you have to admit this whole thing was a mistake. That you hurt an innocent person for nothing. His jaw clenched. Get out, Elena. No. Get out. Louder now, rage bleeding through the control. Before I do something we'll both regret. What? Hurt me? You've already done that. I was close enough now to see the fractures in his composure. You've been hurting me since the cathedral. The difference is now I'm hurting you back by making you see what you've become. He grabbed my wrist, not rough, but firm enough to stop me. You don't know what I've become. Then show me. I lifted my chin, meeting his fury with my own. Show me the monster. Prove that you're as heartless as you claim. Because right now, all I see is a man who's afraid to let go of his pain. For one terrible, breathless moment, I thought he might actually hurt me. Instead, he released me and stepped back. His expression shattered. Take him back to his cell, he told the guards without looking at Marco. And take her upstairs. Don't. Now. The guards moved quickly. One escorted Marco out, the other reached for my arm. But I shook him off. I'll go myself. I walked past Dante, close enough that our shoulders nearly touched. Close enough to feel him trembling with suppressed emotion. This isn't over, I said quietly. Yes, it is. His voice was hollow. It has to be. I left him there in that cold room, surrounded by the ghosts of his past and the ruins of his revenge. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to sounds from the villa footsteps, distant voices, the low thrum of Dante working in his study. Around 2 a.m, I heard his door open. Footsteps approached my room, stopped outside. I waited, barely breathing. A soft knock. I opened the door to find Dante standing there. Still dressed, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. I'm sending Marco back to Tuscany tomorrow, he said without preamble. With money and protection, he'll disappear again. Properly this time. I stared at him. Why? Because you were right. The admission seemed to cost him everything. This doesn't balance anything. It just makes me into the thing I hated. And me? I whispered. What happens to me? He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving over my face like he was memorizing it. I don't know. His hand lifted, fingers brushing my cheek with devastating gentleness. You were supposed to be simple, a means to an end. Instead, you're the first thing in 15 years that's made me question everything. My breath caught. You could let me go too. I could. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt myself trembling. But I won't. Why not? Because somewhere between the cathedral and now, you stopped being revenge. His voice dropped, rough with emotion I'd never heard from him before, and became something I'm not ready to lose. The confession hung between us, changing everything. What am I to you? I needed to hear it. Dangerous. He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. You're dangerous, Elena, because you make me want things I swore I'd never want again. Peace, softness, a future that isn't built on blood. That's not dangerous. That's human. For me, it's the same thing. We stood there in the doorway, balanced on the edge of something irrevocable. His hand still cupped my face, and I could feel his pulse racing where our skin touched. "I should go," he whispered, but he didn't move. Neither did I. "Dante," I breathed. "What are we doing?" "Something impossible." His lips brushed my temple, barely a kiss. "Something I'll probably regret." Then he pulled away, stepping back into the shadows. "Good night, Elena." He returned to his room, leaving me standing in the doorway with my heart racing and the certain knowledge that everything had just changed, that we'd just crossed a line neither of us could uncross. Marco left at dawn with money and new documents, disappearing into whatever life Dante's resources could provide. I watched the car pull away from my window, feeling something release in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. Dante was gone when I emerged business in the city, Gianna said. He didn't return until late afternoon, and when he did, he wasn't alone. 4 cars pulled up to the villa, engines loud in the quiet. I heard shouting before I saw anything else, angry voices, commands in Italian, then gunshots. I ran to the window in time to see Dante moving across the gravel drive with lethal precision, gun drawn, his men flanking him. More shots. Someone screamed. It happened so fast I barely understood what I was seeing. Men in dark clothes, not Dante's, trying to breach the villa gates. Dante's security responding with overwhelming force. And Dante himself, calm in the center of chaos, taking down threats with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 100 times. I should have been terrified. Instead, I couldn't look away. The attack lasted maybe 5 minutes. When it ended, 3 bodies lay on the gravel and 2 men knelt with hands zip-tied behind them. Dante standing over them with his gun still raised. He was saying something I couldn't hear what. But the kneeling men were nodding frantically, terror plain on their faces. Then Dante stepped back and gestured to his guards. They dragged the prisoners away as cleanup crews appeared to deal with the bodies. That's when Dante looked up at my window. Our eyes met across the distance. He holstered his gun and walked toward the villa, disappearing from view. Moments later, my door opened. Dante stood there, jacket gone, shirt torn at the shoulder, a thin cut along his forearm bleeding sluggishly. But his eyes, they burned with something between rage and fear. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough. "No, I know." He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me into his arms. The embrace was sudden, desperate, his hands fisting in my sweater as if anchoring himself to something solid. I felt him trembling fine tremors that ran through his whole body. "Don't. They came for you." His words were muffled against my hair. "The Marcelli family. They found out about Marco, about me letting him go. They thought it made me weak, thought they could take you as leverage, but they didn't. They almost did." He pulled back, his hands framing my face, thumbs tracing my cheekbones. If we'd been 30 seconds slower, if they'd gotten past the outer gates, but they didn't, I repeated, my hands coming up to cover his. "I'm safe, because I killed them." His eyes searched mine. "Does that frighten you? Knowing what I'm capable of?" I should have said yes. Should have pulled away from this man who moved through violence like water. Instead, I said, "You protected me. I protected what's mine." "Is that all I am?" The question came out softer than I intended. "A possession to be guarded?" "No." His grip tightened fractionally. He struggled with the words. "You're more. You've been more since the beginning. I just couldn't admit it." My heart stuttered. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this whole thing, the marriage, the revenge, all of it was supposed to fill the emptiness my father's death left. Instead, it just made everything worse. Except you." His forehead touched mine. "You make it better. And I don't know what to do with that. You could start by being honest. I am being honest." His breath ghosted across my lips. "I'm telling you that you terrify me. That I look at you and I want things I swore I'd never want. That I would burn down anyone who tried to take you from me. Not because you're leverage, but because you're..." "What?" Everything I didn't know I needed. The confession shattered something between us. I closed the distance and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was weeks of tension and fear and reluctant fascination compressed into a single point of contact. His arms went around me, pulling me flush against him, and I felt the precise moment his control snapped. He kissed me like he was drowning and I was air. Like he was trying to prove something or claim something or just hold on to something real in a world of shadows. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were wild. Elena. My name was a warning. If we do this, if we cross this line, I won't be able to let you go. Maybe I don't want you to. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I reached up, tracing the scar on his temple. I'm saying that I see you, Dante. All of you. The violence and the control and the man underneath who's terrified of being vulnerable. And I'm choosing this anyway. Why? Because you see me too. It was the truth I'd been avoiding. You see past the revenge and the marriage and the girl you thought I'd be. You see me. And that's dangerous, he finished. Yes. He kissed me again, slower this time, his hands gentle despite the desperation I felt in the tension of his body. When he pulled back, there was a question in his eyes. I answered it by taking his hand and leading him toward my bedroom. We stood at the threshold, both of us trembling for different reasons. Are you sure? His voice was strained. Because I'm sure, though my voice shook. I'm terrified and confused and this probably doesn't make sense, but I'm sure. He cupped my face, thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. We can wait. I don't want to wait. I pressed closer. I want this. I want you. The last thread of his control broke. He kissed me as he guided me backward into the room, his touch reverent and desperate in turns. We moved together in the fading light, and I felt every wall between us crumbling. This wasn't the revenge he'd planned. It wasn't the punishment, or the message, or any of the cold calculations that had brought us together. This was something else entirely, something that felt dangerously like choice. Later, we lay tangled in silk sheets, the room dark except for city lights filtering through the windows. Dante's fingers traced idle patterns on my shoulder, his breathing still unsteady. This changes things, he said finally. Everything already changed. No. Before, I could pretend this was still about revenge. Now, he paused. Now I can't pretend anymore. I turned to face him. What do you want it to be about? You. The word was simple, devastating. Just you. I pressed my hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. I was so angry at you. I am still angry at you. For what you did. For forcing this marriage. I know. But I struggled to find the words. I also understand you better now. The pain that drove you here. And I think maybe we're both trying to survive something we didn't choose. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, but it makes it human. I looked up at him. You're not the monster you think you are, Dante. Monsters don't protect people. They don't question themselves. They don't look at their victims and see people. You're wrong. I am a monster. I just happen to be a monster who... He stopped, jaw clenching. Who what? Who loves you? The confession was barely a whisper. Somehow, impossibly, I fell in love with the weapon I forged against my enemies. My breath caught. You can't. I can. I do. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. I know it's wrong. I know I have no right to feel this after what I've done to you, but I can't help it anymore. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I don't know if I love you, I admitted. But I know I don't want to lose this. Whatever this is. That's enough. He pulled me closer. For now, that's enough. We lay there as night deepened, two broken people finding unexpected solace in each other's arms. Outside, guards patrolled the grounds. Security measures hummed. The world of violence and revenge continued turning. But in that moment, in that room, we existed somewhere separate from all of it. Two people choosing tenderness in a world built on cruelty. It wouldn't last. I knew that. Reality would intrude eventually, it always did. But for now, we had this. And it was more than either of us deserved. The attack changed everything. Security became suffocating, armed guards every 20 feet, cameras in every corridor, bulletproof glass installed in all the windows. The villa transformed from a gilded cage into a military compound, and Dante transformed with it. He became harder again, more controlled. During the day, he was all business meetings with security teams, phone calls conducted in rapid Italian, plans within plans to fortify what was his. But at night, when he came to my room, the armor fell away. We didn't talk about it, this shift from enemies to something else. We simply existed in it, learning each other in the quiet hours between dusk and dawn. I learned that he had nightmares about his father, that he took his coffee black and too hot, that he played piano, though he never did it when anyone could hear. He learned that I cried silently when I was truly sad, that I organized my paints by color temperature, that I hummed while I worked, unconscious melodies that drove him to distraction. We were building something fragile in the ruins of what we'd been, but ruins are never stable. 3 weeks after the attack, Gianna found me in the solarium. We need to talk. Her expression was serious enough that I set down my brush. What's wrong? Dante let Marco go. I know. I was there. Yes. And now the other families know too. She sat across from me, hands folded tightly. They're saying he's gone soft. That marriage has made him weak. There are whispers about challenges to his territory, his authority. What does that mean? It means blood is coming. Gianna met my eyes. And it's coming because of you. The words hit like a slap. I didn't ask for any of this. No, but you changed him anyway. She didn't sound accusatory, just tired. I've known my brother for 37 years. I've never seen him hesitate before. Never seen him choose mercy. Not until you. Is mercy really such a terrible thing? In our world, yes. Gianna leaned forward. Mercy looks like weakness. Weakness invites attack. Attack means bodies. And right now you're the reason he's being merciful. Guilt twisted through me. What do I do? You could leave. I could arrange it. New identity. Enough money to start over. Somewhere far from here. She paused. Or you could stay. Accept what staying means. Which is what? Being the reason. For everything that comes. Gianna's gaze was steady. For the violence he'll commit to protect you. For the choices he'll make that maybe he shouldn't. For becoming the soft spot in his armor that his enemies will aim for. You make it sound like I'm destroying him. You're changing him. Whether that's destruction or salvation depends on what happens next. She left me alone with those words echoing in my mind. That night, Dante found me on the terrace, the same place we'd stood weeks ago when everything was simpler. You're thinking too loud, he said, joining me at the railing. Gianna told me what's happening. The whispers. He lit a cigarette, a habit that had returned since the attack. I wondered when she would. Is it true? Are they coming for you because of me? They're coming because they've always been coming. You're just the excuse. He exhaled smoke into the night. Power is a game of perception, Elena. The moment you show weakness, someone tries to take what's yours. But you are weak now. Because of me. He turned to face me fully. No, I'm different. There's a distinction. Not to them. Perhaps not. He crushed the cigarette beneath his heel. But I don't particularly care what they think. You should care. People are going to die, Dante. Because you let Marco go. Because you chose differently. I chose right. How can you be sure? Because I can sleep now. The admission was quiet. For the first time in 15 years, I sleep without dreaming of blood and revenge. Because of you. So yes, there will be violence. There always is. But it won't be for nothing anymore. I turned away, emotion clogging my throat. I don't want to be the reason you die. Then don't be. He caught my hand, pulling me back. Be the reason I live instead. That's not fair, putting that on me. Life isn't fair, Elena. We've both learned that. His fingers tightened around mine. But I'm giving you a choice anyway. You can leave. Gianna will help you disappear. I'll even give you money, protection, everything you need to start over. Or you stay. Knowing what it means. Knowing that I'll do terrible things to keep you safe. That men will die because they threaten you. That I'll wage wars and break alliances and burn down anyone who tries to take you from me. His eyes burned into mine. Stay, and accept all of it. The violence and the protection and the man who's too damaged to love you the way you deserve but can't stop trying anyway. My heart hammered against my ribs. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. No. An ultimatum would be me keeping you here regardless of what you want. He released my hand. This is me being honest about what staying means, and letting you decide if I'm worth it. For a long moment, I stood there, balanced between two futures. One was freedom real, tangible freedom to rebuild my life somewhere Dante's world couldn't touch me. The other was this: danger and passion, and a man who looked at me like I was the only solid thing in his universe. "I need time," I whispered. "Take what you need." He stepped back. "But Elena, whatever you decide for yourself. Not for me. Not because you feel guilty or responsible or trapped. Decide because it's what you truly want." He left me on the terrace as dawn began to color the sky, and I realized that for the first time since the cathedral, I actually had a choice. The question was whether I was brave enough to make it. I spent 2 days thinking. I painted. I walked the gardens. I wrote in the journal Dante had given me, filling pages with questions that had no easy answers. Did I love him? I didn't know. But I felt something complicated and fierce and nothing like what I'd thought love would be. Did I want this life? No. But I wanted him, and he came with shadows attached. Could I forgive him? Maybe. With time. If he kept choosing mercy over revenge. On the 3rd day, I found him in his study, surrounded by maps and security reports. "I've decided," I said. He looked up, his expression carefully neutral. "And I'm staying." The words felt like jumping off a cliff. Not because I'm trapped, not because I feel guilty, but because I choose you. All of you. Even the broken parts. Something cracked in his composure. He stood slowly, crossing to where I stood. "You're sure?" "No, I'm terrified." I met his eyes, but I'm sure anyway. He kissed me, then desperate and reverent and full of promises neither of us could guarantee. "I don't deserve this," he murmured against my lips. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you have me anyway. Then I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it." It was a vow that would be tested sooner than either of us knew. The challenge came 2 weeks later. Not whispered threats or subtle power plays, but an open declaration. Antonio Marcelli, head of the family that had attacked us, demanded a meeting. Neutral ground. Dante alone. "It's a trap," Gianna said flatly. "You can't go." "I have to." Dante was already preparing, checking weapons, issuing orders to his security team. "If I refuse, I look weak. If I look weak, every family in Rome will think they can make moves on my territory, then bring backup. No. The terms were clear. I go alone, or it's open war." He glanced at me. "And open war means the villa becomes a target, means Elena becomes a target." I'd been silent until now, watching him prepare for what might be his death. "What does he want?" I asked. "Marcelli, what's the point of this meeting?" "He wants me to acknowledge his authority. Bend the knee, essentially." Dante's expression was hard. "Apologize for killing his men. Pay restitution. Prove I'm not a threat. And if you don't, then we fight. Family against family, until one of us is destroyed." The casual way he said it chilled me. There has to be another way. There isn't. He holstered a gun at the small of his back. "This is the world I live in, Elena. The world you chose. Violence or submission. Those are the options. Then choose neither." I moved closer. "Choose something else." "Like what?" "Like being smart instead of strong." An idea was forming, reckless and probably stupid. What if you gave him what he wanted without giving him anything that mattered? Dante frowned. "Explain." "He wants you to look weak, right? To prove you're not a threat. So give him a symbolic win. Apologize for the misunderstanding. Pay some token restitution. Frame it as honoring old alliances." I was making it up as I went, but it felt right. Let him think he's won. Then when he gets comfortable, when he thinks you're weak, you hit back where it matters. His money, his political connections, the things that actually hold power. Gianna was staring at me. "That's actually brilliant. That's also risky." But Dante looked thoughtful. "If he suspects I'm playing him, he'll escalate immediately. Then don't get caught." I met his eyes. "You're good at this, Dante. Strategy, manipulation, playing the long game. Use that instead of just using guns." For a long moment, he was silent. Then, "All right, we'll try it your way." But Gianna started. "She's right. We've been operating on old rules. Maybe it's time to write new ones." He looked at me. "If this works, we avoid a war. If it doesn't, It will work, I said with more confidence than I felt. The meeting was held in an old church on neutral ground, appropriately Gothic, with crumbling frescoes and the smell of candle wax and decay. I wasn't allowed to attend, but Dante wore a wire so Gianna and I could listen from the car outside. Antonio Marcelli's voice came through clear and arrogant. You've made yourself a problem, Corsini. My apologies if I've caused offense. Dante's tone was carefully measured. The attack on my home was regrettable. My response, perhaps, too severe. A pause. You killed 3 of my men, and you tried to breach my security, to threaten my wife. Dante let steel enter his voice. Surely you understand why I responded as I did. Your wife. Marcelli laughed. Yes, the little Bellini girl. I heard you went soft for her. Let Marco Santoro walk because she cried pretty tears. In the car, I tensed. Marco Santoro was a dying man, Dante said smoothly. Killing him would have been meaningless. I chose a more permanent solution: exile with monitoring. He won't be a problem again. Still, it shows weakness. Does it? Or does it show that I'm confident enough in my power that I don't need to prove anything through unnecessary bloodshed? A pause. You want an apology? Very well. I apologize for the misunderstanding. You want restitution? I'll pay for the funerals. But don't mistake strategy for weakness, Antonio. That would be unfortunate. The threat underneath the civility was clear. Another pause. Then, 50,000 euros, for each man. Agreed. And you acknowledge that the North Docks are Marcelli territory. I acknowledge that there's room for discussion about territory allocation. We can negotiate specifics. It went on like that back and forth, Dante giving ground on things that didn't matter while holding firm on what did. Slowly, carefully, he was reframing the entire conversation from submission to negotiation. Finally, you're smarter than I thought, Corsini. I'm smart enough to know when fighting is useful and when it's wasteful. Dante's voice carried weight. We can destroy each other over pride, or we can find a way to coexist that benefits us both. I'm open to either, but know that I'm prepared for both. Silence. Then Marcelli laughed, genuinely amused. Fine, we have an understanding. For now. For now, Dante agreed. The meeting ended. In the car, Gianna and I looked at each other, exhaling tension we'd been holding for an hour. He did it, Gianna breathed. He actually negotiated instead of shooting. Is it over? For now. Marcelli will test the boundaries, but he won't push for open war. Not yet. She looked at me with something like respect. You changed the game. I just suggested an alternative. In this world, alternatives are revolutions, she smiled. My brother chose well, even if he chose incorrectly at first. Dante returned 2 hours later, physically unharmed but tense. I met him in the suite, searching his face for injuries. I'm fine, he said before I could ask. It worked. No war. For now. For now is better than today. Yes. He pulled me into his arms, holding tight. This is because of you. You know that? I just gave you an idea. You gave me a different way of thinking. He pulled back to look at me. For 15 years, I've solved problems with violence. It's all I knew. But you see paths I can't see. Solutions I wouldn't consider. Because I'm not from your world. Because you're better than my world. His hands framed my face. And you're making me better too. Tears burned my eyes. I don't know if better exists for people like us. Then we'll create it. He kissed me softly. Together. No more revenge. No more living in the past. Just forward. Whatever that looks like. Forward is terrifying. So is staying still. His thumb brushed my cheek. But if we're terrified together, maybe it's bearable. I kissed him, then not desperate or passionate, but steady. The kiss of two people choosing each other despite everything. I love you. I whispered against his lips. The first time I'd said it, his breath caught. Elena, I know it's complicated. I know we started wrong, but I love you anyway. All of you. Even the parts that scare me. I don't deserve. Stop. I pressed my fingers to his mouth. Stop saying that. You deserve whatever you're willing to fight for. And I'm choosing to fight for this. For us. Then I'll fight too. His arms tightened around me. For you, for us, for whatever future we can build. That night, we lay tangled together, talking about impossible things. A life beyond the villa. Maybe a home somewhere quieter. Children, eventually, if we could figure out how to raise them in this world. It was all fantasy, dangerous, fragile fantasy, but it was ours. Months passed. The threats didn't disappear, they never would. But we learned to navigate them together. Dante's approach shifted from immediate violence to calculated strategy. Not softer, exactly, but smarter. I continued painting. Eventually, Gianna arranged a small showing at a gallery in Rome, my work exhibited under Elena Corsini, the name I was still learning to wear. The opening night, Dante stood beside me, his hand at the small of my back, pride evident in every line of his body. "They're beautiful," someone said of my paintings. "She's talented," Dante replied simply. Later, alone in the gallery after it closed, we stood before the cathedral painting the one I'd finally finished. It showed the wedding venue, but transformed, not haunted anymore. The shadows were still there, but so was light breaking through the stained glass, illuminating what lay beneath. "Is that how you see it now?" Dante asked. That day? Yes, it was the worst day of my life. But it was also the beginning. I leaned into him. The beginning of this. His arm came around me. "I would change it if I could. Give you a real choice from the start. I know, but I wouldn't." I looked up at him. "Because we wouldn't be here if you had. We'd be strangers. And I prefer this complicated and imperfect and ours." He kissed the top of my head. "You make me believe in redemption. You make me believe in change." We stood there as city lights flickered beyond the windows, two people who'd started as enemies and become something neither of us had expected. Love built on ruins, hope grown in darkness, a future uncertain but finally chosen. Outside, the world continued violent and unpredictable. Dante's security still patrolled. Threats still lurked in shadows. But inside, in that moment, we had peace, fragile and hard-won, but real. And maybe that was enough. Maybe we didn't need perfect. Maybe we just needed each other.